enforcers of law who are tasked with maintaining public order, protecting individuals and property, and preventing and investigating crimes. That is what being a police officer means, or at least that's what they are trying to do. Instances have aroused where police officers have misused their authority, employed excessive force, and violated people's rights, particularly those from marginalized communities, leading to distrust and fear of law enforcement. Are they subjected to such power? What are the legal repercussions for them, however? And most of all, would they be treated differently when compared to the masses? Join us as we take a closer look at two of the most uncanny cases that could make question the judicial system as a whole. Our first case kicks off with the case of Harold Hill, which is just a perfect example of how our justice system can go wrong. This case definitely checks all the boxes, including a horrific rape and murder, as well as a mishandled conviction, you name it. So then what went about? Let's start with the so-called beacons of justice, Kenneth Bordeaux and John Halloran, the detectives who were assigned to the case and the beacons of law. They were the ones who managed to extract a confession from Peter Williams, who was later discovered to have been in custody when the crime was committed. How did they even produce a fabricated confession from someone who wasn't even present? Hill claims he was physically and mentally tortured until he confessed to crimes he didn't commit. Is this the kind of conduct we anticipate from our law enforcement personnel? The trial itself was held when Hill was 31 years old, despite the fact that he was only 16 at the time of the crime and was therefore tried as an adult. At this point, it's just not fair, and it's incomprehensible what Hill is going through. Given that neither of the defendants had a criminal history prior to the incident, this is an intriguing move by the prosecution. Hill and Young were given a life without parole sentence after the jury found them guilty of the murder. However, 13 long years later, DNA tests showed that neither of the defendants' cellular components found under Kathy Morgan's fingernails, nor the hair found at the crime scene matched either of them. Imagine the sheer suffering Hill endured for something he didn't do. It continues to amaze me how Hill managed to hang on to his life. The prosecutors disputed the findings despite this evidence, claiming that the hairs had nothing to do with the crime and that the cellular material might have come from sweat or drool that the recovery teams had left behind. Even in the face of such overwhelming evidence, it's shocking that the prosecutors were so resistant. Young was killed in a hit-and-run incident shortly after Harold and Young were finally let out of jail. This almost leads us to believe that this is almost a plot to clip both of them. Hill, on the other hand, accused the city of Chicago, the police, and the two detectives involved in the case of coercing a confession and violating his civil rights in a complaint he filed against them. The case was resolved for $1.25 million, of which Hill received $500,000 and the remainder was paid to the lawyers. It's surprising that the detectives were only asked to make a pitiful $7,500 payment for their roles in this whole fiasco. You think that's all? Wait until you hear this. It should be noted that Hill is currently serving a 27-year sentence after being found guilty once more of an unrelated charge of armed robbery. In spite of this, it is obvious that Harold Hill was let down by the legal system in the past. This case emphasizes the need for justice system reform to prevent erroneous convictions and make sure that those who abuse their power are held accountable. Starting with the investigation and continuing through the trial and conviction, the Harold Hill case is a tragedy of errors. Hill was wrongfully detained for 13 years, and because the system made him a criminal, he was never given the opportunity to adapt to life outside of prison. He was completely screwed over by the system, and the police only received $7,500 each. When police officers commit acts like the ones they did, they should be imprisoned for a minimum of the same amount of time as the victims they imprisoned. Up next, we have an oddball in the form of Sergeant Mario Cardona versus Daniel Garza. After being thrown and pinned to the ground, Daniel Garza was rendered helpless. Officer Mario Cardona, a longtime friend of Garza's, was on the verge of breaking his wrist. Confronting a criminal and keeping him confined is one thing, but putting a civilian without a reason is shocking. Garza recalled, I was trying to be a man and trying to hold in the pain, but man, that wrist lock hurts. He's just bending it and bending it. But why did Cardona go so far as to nearly break his wrist? His actions were apparently driven by rage toward Garza, whom he accuses of attempting to kidnap his stepdaughter. But are cops subjected to such an authority in the first place? It appears that the two men had a long history together because Garza had once dated Naomi Villanueva, the stepdaughter of Cardona. Villanueva left her parents' home to live with a friend because the relationship had reached its breaking point. However, Villanueva was allegedly taken from her friend's home in May 2015 by Garza without her consent and brought to her parents' residence in Whittier, where Cardona lived across the street. Garza was performing pilates in his garden when Cardona saw him and told him to go to the street. Cardona started his assault as soon as Garza sat down. Garza claimed that he was not the aggressor, and a neighbor who saw the incident attested to Garza's innocence. As soon as they arrived on the scene, the sheriff's deputies saw redness on Garza's face, bruises and abrasions on his knees, and redness on his wrist. After Garza complained about Cardona, the city of Los Angeles, Chief Beck, and Cardona were named as defendants in a federal lawsuit. Garza claimed that he had been the victim of a false arrest, an arbitrary search and seizure, overuse of force, an assault and battery, negligence, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The trial also featured a video of the incident captured by one of Garza's neighbors. They had made up a story of what had happened to make him look like a hero, and me look like a criminal, Daniel Garza. The hearing was presided over by U.S. District Judge Stephen V. Wilson, who heard former Deputy City Attorney Michael Amarian speak in defense of the city. Cardona was found to have acted maliciously as an off-duty officer by the jury, and on June 26, 2017, he was ordered to pay Garza $210,000 in damages. In addition, the court added $664,000 in attorney's fees and $26,000 in post-trial costs. The city of L.A. refused to take responsibility for Cardona's actions and even refused to indemnify the officer, forcing him to pay for the charges out of his pocket. Jim DeSimone, Garza's attorney, claims, "This is the problem with the LAPD. This is why people are out on the street." The incident serves as an example of how police can abuse people and get away with it. In this instance, however, Garza was able to confront the authorities who had infringed upon his rights and prevail in his lawsuit against Cardona. It is clear that police officers cannot get away with using excessive force against citizens after the jury found Cardona guilty of malice. It is important to note that this case also emphasizes how crucial it is for citizens to be aware of their rights and to speak out against law enforcement when they believe those rights have been violated. Garza's decision to accuse Cardona of using excessive force and file a complaint against him demonstrates that people can take legal action to stop police brutality. What do you think of these cases? Which do you think is most unfair? Sound off in the comments below and make sure to let us know if we missed out on anything. While you are at it, make sure to hit that subscribe and leave a like to never miss an update from us. Thanks for watching.
On November 14, 2022, an incident occurred at an SKLD Wyoming nursing home involving a staff member named Sue and a visitor named Michelle. Sue, the administrator of the facility, called the police on Michelle, accusing her of trespassing and taking pictures of her mother without permission. Despite Michelle's claims that she had not committed any crime and that the nursing home was a public facility, the police quickly convicted her of trespassing and detained her.
She's not on the trespass list, so officially trespasser.
There you go.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Sue. I'm the administrator. So we have a family member who had an allegation against her, and so we've reached out to her and let her know that if she wants to visit, we need to meet with the team here and figure out a way we can keep the mom from being. Her guardian does not even want her to visit, but we talked her into letting her. If we do supervised or promise that she won't take pictures of her mom and put them all over Facebook and TikTok and stuff because the guardian doesn't want that happening. She came in, refused to talk to me, slammed the door in my face, wouldn't let me in the room. So
Do you want to trespass?
yeah, at this point, yes.
Way to get her out of
Until she will come in and meet with us and figure out what
you
we
can always
do.
take the no trespass order
Because-
away, but
yeah.
let's get her trespass. That's the only
Because
way
I
we're
don't
gonna
want
get
to.
her
I
out
don't
of
want to
here.
not let her see her mother, but she needs to do it so we can keep them on safe.
During the encounter, Michelle argued that the nursing home, being publicly funded, should not be able to trespass on her without reasonable cause. She even mentioned contacting the facility's vice president, who allegedly stated that she had not committed any crime. Michelle believed that her actions were protected by her First Amendment rights, allowing her to visit the facility and take pictures freely. However, the police insisted that trespassing occurred because the nursing home, as private property, had the authority to restrict entry as they deemed necessary. They maintained that Michelle's refusal to cooperate and meet with the facility's team justified her trespass conviction.
Pretty much like anywhere, just like if you walk into a speedway, they can say, hey, I don't want this person here anymore. Doesn't matter what the reason for it. If they tell me that, and they want you, they say, hey, I want them trespass.
So when I come back tomorrow, I go to jail?
Yeah, you can't come back
Okay.
until you
I
figure
will
it
be
out.
coming back.
Okay.
And I already let the vice president and president, I spoke to them today. They said, we haven't heard anything. Well, then why are they doing this? You might want to call her.
Call them and tell them to talk to Sue then.
Correct.
That's the best you can do
That's-
right now.
Yep, this is just I'm sorry, this is a fucking joke.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong, but so don't come back on the property until you clear it up with the
I'm
vice
coming back
president.
tomorrow. I'll be here every day, and I don't care if I go to jail. I've already been told by lawyers, by the advocates that help Britney Spears. National News, the News 8, everybody's on this. So they've already told me, if you have to push the envelope, because that's just going to seal the lawsuit. Huh?
You're not going to be able to do that.
No, but it'll seal the deal when I'm getting arrested for no crime.
Trespassing not be the crime.
No, but that's what I'm saying. They can't say I'm trespassing when I've committed no crime.
That is
can't.
the crime. That's what we're trying to tell you.
Michelle expressed her frustration and stated her intention was to return to the facility, disregarding the trespass warning. She believed that her case had gained significant attention, citing advice from lawyers and advocates who had helped Britney Spears. She asserted that pushing the envelope and standing up for her rights would strengthen her potential lawsuit against the nursing home. Furthermore, Michelle claimed that one of the police officers violated her Fourth Amendment rights during her detainment. She alleged that he forcefully tried to seize her phone while she was attempting to inform her children of the situation. Despite not having committed any crime that warranted handcuffing, she was restrained by the officer.
I'm not giving it to you.
Okay, well then you're gonna be detained until we figure that out. Then.
Huh?
Then you're detained until we figure that out. And
Why are you detaining me?
Because right now you have to be trespassed.
Okay, well, can I make one phone call?
Nope, you have to give me your driver's license.
I
Or
don't
just tell me your
have to
name.
give you. You already know my name.
Okay, can you write down her
We
name?
know.
Oh my God!
Exactly how it's spelled.
So what's
until we can find you and we can figure out who you are.
Hold on, I'm gonna
Exactly.
call and let them know. Go pick up my kids, and I'm being arrested.
You're not being arrested right now.
Oh,
you're
yeah,
being
I am.
detained.
So detained and arrested are two different things. Being
Hold
arrested
on.
means that you've been charged with something. Being detained is temporary.
Hold on, I'm being detained
Okay. Do you want to?
because I won't give them my license.
All right. So what's
I've
your
done
date?
nothing wrong.
What's your date of birth?
I've committed no crime.
What's your
Brandy,
date of
what's your
birth?
I committed no crime.
Okay, now you're being detained then. And then we'll get a fingerprint scanner and then we'll figure it out. Let go of the phone.
Brandy, you want to work with a woman.
I'm not doing anything
wrong. Right now, you need to
We're not
present
playing games with you.
Only
If
if
they-
I've committed a crime
Not
and
true.
reasonable articulable suspicion, and I've done nothing of the
So
sort.
right now you've been trespassed, okay?
Uh-huh.
So we need to identify you so we
Uh-huh.
can successfully trespass you
Uh-huh.
by doing our lawful job.
Okay.
Michelle's perspective on the incident raises concerns about the staff's handling of her visitation rights and the violation of her constitutional rights by the police officers. She intends to take legal action, asserting that her rights were infringed upon throughout the incident. In yet another troubling incident that occurred on October 31st, 2022, a visually impaired man named Jim Hodges was illegally arrested and detained by two Columbia County cops in Florida. The officers, Deputy Jamie Godey and Sergeant Randy Harrison, claimed that the walking stick Hodges had in his back pocket was a firearm, leading to his arrest without lawful authority. The encounter was captured on video by Hodges himself. When the officers approached him and questioned the object in his back pocket, Hodges explained that it was a walking stick. However, the officers insisted on obtaining his identification and detained him, citing their suspicion he was carrying a weapon.
What's this in your back pocket? I just saw you walking it.
It's a navigational aid. What's the problem? You a tyrant?
Yeah, I am actually. What's your name and date of birth?
I don't have to give that unless
Yes,
I'm
sir.
here.
I was
You
investigating.
have reasonable
Do you want me to
articulated
put you in
suspicion.
handcuffs right now? Yes, sir, I do.
Hodges questioned the officer's authority and refused to provide his identification, stating he had not committed a crime. He asserted that his Fourth Amendment rights protected him from unreasonable searches and seizures without probable cause or a warrant. Despite Hodges' explanations, the officers continued to detain him and insisted on checking his identification.
Well, you're being one to me.
No, sir, I'm
Have a
doing my
good day.
job.
Am I detained?
Yeah, you are. What's your name and date of birth?
It does not matter.
Yes, sir, it does.
Do you have a crime?
Would you like me
Call
to
your
put you in here?
supervisor,
He's right
please.
here.
All right.
You know.
Sir, what you stop for? For a walking stick.
So-
And it could look like a weapon. She asked you to present it, okay? Now she's asking me for ID. Okay. I don't need the ID unless there's reasonable articulated suspicion that I have committed a crime and committing a crime or about to do a crime. Sir, and her suspicion was that you were armed, okay? And she's asking you for your ID. Well, now she has verified that I am not armed. Okay. So there is no problem. You have your ID or not? I do have my ID, but you don't need it. Okay. Okay. Sir, get it up.
77 Whiskey Mike 15. Where's wallet at?
Where's your wallet at, sir? I don't have a wallet on me.
Okay, where's your ID?
Where's your ID in my pocket? Which pocket? You are not allowed to search me.
It's in this pocket.
There you go.
Thank you.
The incident constitutes a clear violation of Hodges' Fourth Amendment rights, which protect against unreasonable searches, seizures, and false imprisonment. Florida statutes define false imprisonment as forcibly confining, abducting, imprisoning, or restraining another person without lawful authority and against their will. In this case, the officers wrongly arrested and detained Hodges, despite identifying the object in his back pocket as a walking stick.
It's gonna be. I want your name and your badge number. You know, I'll put you in jail for resisting.
Okay. All right, let's go.
I want your name and badge number too, sir.
Have a seat.
You wanna pick my property up, please?
I sure will, after you have a seat.
You wanna pull this out of my back pocket?
Sure. Here, I'll grab your jacket for you, too.
After an investigation by the sheriff's office, it was determined that Deputy Godey and Sergeant Harrison had violated several department policies. As a result, Sergeant Harrison was immediately demoted and suspended without pay for 7 days, while Deputy Godey received a 2-day suspension. Both officers were also required to undergo remedial training on civil rights. Hodges has retained an attorney and plans to file a lawsuit against the Columbia County Sheriff's Office. He's also requesting a federal investigation into the incident. The case highlights the importance of protecting individuals' constitutional rights and holding law enforcement accountable for any violations. In this next video, in May of 2020, an incident unfolded in Columbia County, Georgia, where a man was filming a video outside the store. However, the owners of the store called the police on him, prompting officers from the Columbia County Sheriff's Office to respond. The officer in charge approached the man and requested his identification, citing a call about his videotaping activity.
Yeah, we got a call about your videotape
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the
just-
property. Do you have it?
No, I'm not on their property. I never step on nobody's
Oh,
property.
okay.
No, sir.
No, I just got the call.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm just letting you know.
Do you have a driver or an ID?
Well, I don't show my ID. I don't do nothing wrong. You understand? I'm filming in public, giving people free advertisement, and they approach me. And if you could just tell them that I'm not doing anything wrong, and
Yeah, but you weren't on the property.
no, sir, I'm very careful not to do that. I'll pull GIS surveys and been doing this a long
What are you
time.
videoing for, if you don't mind me asking?
First Amendment, protected activity, just
Just doing like
yeah, free advertisement.
Do you live around here? Are you from here? I'm
No, I'm not from around here. Most people know me. I do this. I go around and, show people right from wrong, wrong from right. And, when they say they call the police, I don't leave. Yeah.
Just checking on it.
Yeah.
But you were never on the property?
No, I'm very close. Never ever to do that. Matter of fact, far as I was right there at the edge of the curtilage, the GIS survey starts.
The man asserted that he had not committed any wrongdoing and explained that he was filming in a public area to provide free advertisement. He emphasized that he was careful not to trespass or infringe upon anyone's rights. Refusing to show his identification, he relied on his understanding of Georgia law, which states that unless someone has broken the law, they are not required to identify themselves. The officer alleged that the man had trespassed on the store's property, despite video evidence proving otherwise. However, the officer persisted in requesting identification to potentially charge the man with trespassing. The man maintained his innocence and questioned the basis for his detention, as he had not committed any crime.
Unless I've broken the law, you don't have to ID in the state of Georgia. Am I being detained?
Well, for the moment, yes.
For what crime?
Until we find out what's going on.
To what crime am I being committed?
We were called because you were on their property.
Right, and he determined I wasn't.
Okay. Hang tight. Just a minute, we'll get you out.
Am I being detained for an unlawful reason? Yes or no?
Right now, you're being detained because you were on their property, and we're trying to find out what's going on.
Okay, and I can prove that I wasn't on their property, and they can't prove that I was. Or, there again, issue me a trespass, I'll be on my way, and then we'll go to court, but...
A staff sergeant arrived at the scene, and the man recounted the entire incident, including his rights and the lack of any illegal activity. As the man spoke, the two deputies involved in the arrest stood by, seemingly embarrassed.
How are you? What was your name and badge number, sir?
Sure, it's Staff Sergeant Johnson, 93159.
Hey, Johnson. I was explaining to them, I'm out here exercising my rights, First Amendment right. Private property starts about 1.2 foot on the other side of that telephone pole per government document survey. Well, okay. Anyway, I did my homework. I'm down here giving some people free advertisement. They called the police to me. This deputy here legally detained me for 18 minutes and 32 seconds for no suspicion of nothing. He told me that I had to show him my identification to be trespassed. I explained to him I was on the curtilage of that road. Right there, their property starts at the front tire of that VW. Okay. And I'm trying to exercise my rights. Both of them gentlemen stood in a auditorium or courthouse with their hand on a Bible, and they swore an oath to protect my civil rights. Yes, sir. He's wanting my Fourth Amendment violated. He's wanting my First Amendment violated. And they called the police to me and lied. I got 28 minutes of video that shows me doing exactly what I'm doing right now on public property, exercising my right as an American.
So and any time did you go on their property?
No, sir. I'll look. He knows exactly who I am.
Which one?
To the left.
Okay.
And I told him I'm going to file a formal complaint on him and him. And y'all have never, ever had a problem with Columbia County.
Right.
Ever. And once you realize who I am and what I'm doing, and it really makes y'all look bad, man. And I'm legally detained for no crime. That's a...
As long as you haven't been on their property, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Because you're outside their property, and you're legally doing what you need
Absolutely.
to do.
Can you explain that to them so they don't violate anybody else's rights?
And they don't want you on their property.
Absolutely.
So
and I don't go on their property.
That's why they were just saying a criminal trespass warning. So you've been warned.
I've been warned the first time that don't get an ID. The second time you do. See, he didn't know that. He didn't know that.
I'm good to go with you if you're...
I'm good to go. Am I still detained? Thank you. Well, and thank you. I'll wait till y'all leave and then I'll leave.
The staff sergeant acknowledged the man's explanation and confirmed that he had not been on the store's property. The man expressed his intention to file a formal complaint against the deputy who detained him, citing violations of his Fourth Amendment rights and First Amendment rights. Eventually, the deputies conceded that there was no illegality in the man's filming activity and allowed him to leave without further detainment. This incident serves as a reminder of the importance of understanding and upholding individuals' constitutional rights, even during encounters with law enforcement.